Hello, welcome to Mountain Coffee Outdoors. We're about a week into April. We have a cold snap that has rolled in. It's supposed to get down to around 17 degrees Fahrenheit tonight. They were saying that it might snow, it might be some rain, some sleet, some snow. As the week went on, the chances in the forecast dropped a bit, and it has been dry today. Nothing's come down. There is still a chance that we might get a little snow this evening. But yeah, why not go camping? The grass around here is greening up a little bit. Things are trying to grow. So I'm sure these cold temperatures aren't gonna make the plants very happy, but why not take advantage of some challenging conditions? It's pretty windy, which is making the cool air even colder. But why not? Let's go camping. Right, this is the spot that I camped in back in February when I made my first camping video for my channel. I've had a bit of a equipment upgrade since, so this video ought to look and sound considerably better than that first video that I shot here. Yeah, I still see the fire spot I had my fire. Just need to rig up a shelter and kind of settle in for the night. Should have, I don't know, maybe at least an hour and a half of light to go, so kind of need to get going here and get some stuff accomplished. Alright, well, I have the little shelter lean-to pretty well set up. I might put the space blanket kind of on that one end of it to reflect some of the heat from the fire back. It did start snowing. I have some snowflakes are coming down. I don't know how easy it is to see those. But you can see back on the tarp here that if this camera is showing this very well, there is some snow on it. Maybe you can see this a little bit better. There's definitely some snow on there. I really don't think there's a whole lot of snow that's going to come down tonight, but who knows? I don't know. If it keeps up like this, might have a nice little dusting, but I don't really think there'll probably be much accumulation. It's still snowing. It stopped for a while I was cutting wood, or slowed down at least quite a bit. And I thought maybe it was done, but then it started back up, and it's been coming down ever since. bit of a nuisance, just kind of getting all over everything, dusting it with a coating of sugary snow. I'm heating up my supper for the night. Due to the fact that I was going to get out here so late and it was going to take me so much time to get the shelter up and the fire going, and it was going to be dark, I just decided to bring an MRE to eat for supper. So I'm heating that up. I have the entree. It's meatballs and marinara sauce, and there's also some garlic mashed potatoes. And then the oatmeal cookie, I just stuffed all those packets in my Morris pot and dumped some water in it, have it over the fire. I'm heating up some water in my my steel bottle to mix with the fruit or the tropical punch. Figure might as well heat it up. Just make that this canteen cup. It's what it's made to go in anyway. Might as well use it. If I drug the thing out here. I have to say it was kind of an interesting night. I've been camped out here this evening, but I managed to score a custom-made ulu knife made by Bush Radical. I'm glad I happened to see the videos that Dave and Brooke Whipple put up on each of their channels, saying that Dave was going to put some up for sale tonight, and I happened to have just enough data service that I was able to get on eBay out here. I walked over to the edge of the field that's kind of behind me here. Got a little bit better service there. It was roaming, but it worked, and I was able to buy one of those ulu knives on eBay out here. So I'm happy about that. Too bad they won't deliver it out here. I mean, come on. Well, it's still snowing. It's cold. Maybe not quite as windy as it was, but there's still enough wind that kind of makes it hard to stay warm. I think pretty soon here I'm going to crawl into my sleeping bag and sleep for the night. Kind of hard to see it, but I have just kind of an open lean-to, which might probably end the best thing with this blowing snow. But I'm glad I brought this just blue plastic tarp. I was thinking about using this to construct a kind of a separate little sleep shelter. I just decided not to, but I am going to cozy up underneath this and keep the snow off of me tonight. I have my Canadian, it's hard to see, but it's down there. My down Canadian military, it's the 3-piece sleep system. It has the inner bag, outer bag, and the flannel liner. I just have the outer bag and the flannel liner. It should be warm enough. But I'm going to crawl in there, and I'll see you tomorrow. Morning time. Sorry, no fancy shot of me emerging from my down cocoon down there. I just didn't really feel like getting out and digging out the camera and setting it up on a tripod and climbing back in. It's just it's just a little too cold for that this morning. But yeah, this is that Canadian sleeping bag. Have the little Smurf hood here thing. Keeps your head pretty warm though. I really do like this system because you really can't bury your head inside the sleeping bag very easily, so it helps keep you from kind of crawling in there and just exhaling a whole bunch of moisture with your breath into your sleeping bag. But kept me warm enough. This is only the outer bag and the cotton flannel liner, but it served my needs last night. I had it, while it was still snowing, I had that blue tarp covering me just to keep the snow off the bag, and got up in the middle of the night, early morning hours after it stopped snowing, and I kicked that down, got that out of the way. I didn't really want it holding in a bunch of moisture in my sleeping bag. Guess I have to get the classic shot over the pot hanging over the fire. Couldn't miss that. This is my Morse pot, sold by the Four Dog Stove Company in Minnesota. Yeah, it got a lot more snow last night than I thought we were going to. Piled up here on the tarp pretty well, and I knocked that down several times over the course of the evening. Just kind of piled up there at the bottom. There. But yeah, all in all, I mean, some spots it looks like we got maybe 3/4 of an inch, or some spots look more like an inch of accumulation. It's probably like like half an inch, 3/4 of an inch, I suppose. More than I thought we were going to get. When I came out here, it sounded to me like nothing was going to come down. Just hanging out the sleeping bag to get a little of that condensation to hopefully dry on it. But it's not that big of a deal if it doesn't dry, because I'm just going to take the sleeping bag home where it's warm and just kind of pack it lightly and let it dry out there. There's a lot more obviously up by where my head was from my breath. If you're out on an extended trip where you're out for several nights, this whole game of keeping your sleeping bag dry is very important, because you just wind up with ice in your sleeping bag. That's probably about the last place you want chunks of ice. Your body gives off a lot of moisture while you're sleeping, and you gotta do something to manage that. Otherwise, if you're out for like a week or so in sub-freezing conditions, you know, it's going to become an issue for you. So you got to really dry your sleeping bag out at every reasonable opportunity. On a one night overnight like this, not a big deal. You could get that thing all encrusted with condensation and ice, and it really doesn't matter, because you're just going to pack it up and take it home. I heard the turkeys out gobbling away here this morning. They kind of, the turkey sounds were coming from many directions. Pretty sure it's turkey mating season. I got some video last night of, I think it was a tom turkey chasing around a hen. He was gobbling away, and well, I think it's time for some coffee. With my REI dividend, one of the goodies I picked up was one of these Hydro Flask coffee mug things. I guess in a sense I'm always kind of on the lookout for good coffee drinking options, I guess. And I noticed that on one of her videos, Girl in the Woods, Brooke Whipple, said that she really liked the Hydro Flask she had, so I thought maybe might be worth giving a shot. I've used it at home, and so far I've been happy with it. I mean, I probably need more insulated coffee mugs, like I need a hole in the head, but whatever. I'm just going to do the cone filter pour over thing today. It's got to think, this, if I fill this mug all the way up, there's quite a bit of capacity in there, so it's definitely going to take more coffee here. Probably work. I do like coffee. Strong coffee. Well, I don't like weak coffee. Coffee that tastes more like hot water than it does coffee is disgusting. On the other end of the spectrum, though, in my opinion, coffee can't get too dark. If you could liquefy coffee beans, I'd be able to drink them. But I also like drinking tea from time to time, especially when I'm outside. Oh, if I can get this. There we go. You know, I believe I've read in more than one outdoors book over the years that the author would make the comment that, you know, they liked coffee, but out in the wilds, they really thought that tea was a lot better drink. And I have to say, that just seems to me that tea tastes better when you're outside. I don't know if it like warms you up kind of on the inside better than coffee does, or what, but it's tea's also good. I like my Earl Grey probably the best. Maybe I'll make some tea later. I have some with me. In my my German style mess kit, I usually keep some tea in there along with some buckwheat and maybe a package of hot cocoa mix or two. You know, for the first time in I don't know how long, and I don't know how many years, this morning when I woke up, I looked to see if I could find any hot coals still from the fire from the evening before, and I couldn't find any. I'm not saying there weren't any in there, but I fanned it a good bit with my little foam pad and blew a lot of the ash off of it, and I never really saw anything that looked like it was still burning. So I actually had to break down and go out and find some cedar bark and some twigs and light the fire. And I actually used matches to do that, which I hadn't lit a campfire with matches for a while either. I just didn't really want to mess with finding tinder that the ferro rod would light up, or even worse, the flint and steel set. It was cold. My hands were cold. I kind of felt like the guy in Jack London's to build a fire. Although my situation by no means was that dire, but my hands sure felt like it. They were cold enough they hurt. But it took 2 matches, unfortunately. I couldn't do my old 1-match fire. That used to be my standard of fire lighting competence, I guess, from back in the Boy Scout days. But now I don't always trust matches all that much. I've had a lot of them over the years, like whether I'm trying to use them out camping or at home. You know, they'll barely light, or when they light, the head just kind of fizzles and never actually bursts into flame. And I don't know if those matches were just old or what the deal was, but as a result of that, I don't necessarily trust matches. I always carry matches. I always have matches with me when I'm out, but I don't particularly trust that they're going to light up if I need them, so I always have some sort of a backup. In my personal opinion, I think it's a good idea to carry matches, a butane lighter, and a ferro rod, and something to strike it with. That way you have at least 3 different options, and all that together doesn't, I mean, as long as the ferro rod's not humongous, those 3 items really don't weigh very much and they don't take up much space, so there's really no reason why you can't carry them. I didn't even bother. I do believe I have a lighter hanging around in my pack, but I didn't even bother pulling that out because I knew that it'd be too cold to work. I'd have to heat it up first. I did sleep with my camera battery in a little baggie with me in the sleeping bag, just so hopefully I'd be able to record some video. And I was going to pull the 9-volt battery out of the microphone and put that in with that same in with the camera battery, but I didn't. I just kind of packed it away and decided, that's just a disposable 9-volt battery. I'm not as worried about maybe shortening its life as I am the lithium-ion battery for the camera. Yeah, this coffee funnel, usually the base, this big wide ring base that sits on the edge of your mug or whatever you're using, the Hydro Flask, the little neck on it is so narrow that it actually goes through that hole, but it rests nicely, just kind of fits right over top of it, and actually works pretty well, even though it's almost too small for it, essentially. I think the only reason that that there weren't any coals was that I never burned a whole lot of wood on it last night once I got it going between then and when I went to sleep. So it wasn't quite as established, and I had some decent sized firewood on there, but none of the logs were all that humongous by any means. When I got up at 4 something in the morning to go take a leak, there were a few coals at that point in time, so I took one of my firewood logs, and laid it over the top of them, hoping that would help preserve them, and maybe that would, that log would kind of smolder a bit, and that didn't seem to work at all. I mean, the heat from the fire managed to melt the snow that was on top of the log, which I probably should have just brushed off before I put it on there, but it melted that. But other than that, it didn't do anything. Those coals just were gone. So hopefully in this video, the video footage is a lot better than it was when I was out here 2 months ago. I was shooting that on that was the first time I'd ever tried shooting any video while I was out camping or doing stuff outdoors, and any dedicated video footage. I just did it on my phone. The microphone was a big, the microphone on the phone was a big limiting factor, as was the phone itself, the video capabilities of the phone. Could have been worse, true, but yeah, I got a lot better setup now. So hopefully this is a little bit better quality, audio and visual. Okay, I did just notice something with this Hydro Flask coffee mug thing. The top, it snaps down, and it does, it does a good job. It doesn't drip out when it's sealed, which is good. And it has a little nub back here that when you are drinking from it, you can pop this back, and then it locks on there. Well, at home, that locks just fine, and it stays there. I've noticed out here it's cold, and that little, when you snap it down, it's snapped down, you let go, it pops up. I think it's because the plastic is cold and it's kind of, it's shrunk a little bit. Not that big of a deal at all. It's really a total non-issue. I just thought I'd kind of just point that out in case anybody else is wondering about this. Well, according to the thermometer on the tree over here, it says that it got down to about -14 Celsius or about 8 Fahrenheit last night. The forecasted low is supposed to be around like 14 Fahrenheit at the lowest, so it kind of makes me wonder about this thermometer. Last time I was out here, it also kind of said something similar. It was supposed to get down to, I think, maybe something in the teens, and it said, this thermometer said it got down to about 8 or so Fahrenheit. So as far as I know, this thing's fairly accurate, so who knows? Maybe this is a spot that just kind of happens to collect cold air or something. I wanted to touch a little bit on the what I kind of see as the two different ways, or the two different general strategies that you can use to keep yourself warm while you're sleeping in winter camping situations. One of the ways is what I call the more gear-driven approach, and that is you bring a warm sleeping bag basically, and warm gear, maybe a tent, like a four-season tent or something, or you build a snow shelter, and you use that warm gear that you brought, namely that warm sleeping bag, and you rely on that to keep you warm through the night. The other approach, as I see it, is this system where you rely on fire to keep you warm, and you build like a shelter. Like this is a shelter that's trying to take advantage of that system. I have a lean-to. I have this emergency blanket in here to reflect heat back on me. I set up the shelter roughly a good step distance from the fire, and it does provide some warmth over here. The last time in February when I was out here, I was trying to rely more on that fire-driven approach. I brought a sleeping bag that wasn't all that warm. I had a wool blanket or two, and my intent was to more rely on that fire to keep me warm. And I did make one problem with that, is that you have to keep the fire going all night or you're going to get cold. So I did make an attempt to keep the fire going somewhat while I was sleeping, but after a while I just let it burn down, and it ceased to provide me with much warmth. And on that camp, overall I didn't stay terribly warm. I didn't freeze by any means, but I kept waking up over and over to reposition the blanket and everything, things that had slid off, just trying to keep warm. So I was up, kept waking up over and over. This time I went with more of the gear-driven approach, where I brought a sleeping bag that was warmer and relied on that to keep me warm. I let the fire burn down last night completely intentionally. I was not relying on that for warmth. In fact, I wanted to minimize the chance of any sparks or anything hitting my sleeping bag and burning holes through it. So I just slept on my thermarest. I actually have the thin little German Army pad that folds up into the backpack, the kind of forms the frame of the backpack. I have that under my old thermarest, my old-fashioned thermarest, and I had that Canadian sleeping bag on top of that. And then because it was snowing, I kind of wrapped everything up under the blue tarp have that over me, just keep the snow off of me. And I was confident that, you know, between the sleeping pad, that the being in the sleeping bag, and having that tarp over me to keep me dry and to keep the wind off of me if need be, that I would be warm and comfortable. And it worked out. I would have been, I wasn't extremely warm by any means, but I was plenty warm to sleep comfortably. Had I brought the down inner bag for that sleeping bag, I would have been really warm, no doubt. It got down to maybe around 10 Fahrenheit last night, or it says 8 on the thermometer. I don't know if I truly believe that, but it was fairly cool last night. In that just the outer bag and the flannel inner liner with that Canadian bag worked great. And I even, after I woke up in the middle of the night and it stopped snowing altogether and I could see stars, I got that blue tarp off of me as best I could, because I just didn't want to hold in any extra moisture. I'm not saying that one of those systems is better than the other. It's just, it comes down to a matter of choice. I do think, however, if you're going out in really difficult cold conditions, and if you have the gear to fall back on, you might be better if things don't go very well for you. I mean, if you're relying on being able to build and maintain a fire, you know, quite possibly you're going to be able to do that, but it takes more effort, and you just never know. If you could hole up somewhere in a sleeping bag, you know that at least you have that to fall back on to keep warm. But definitely you're going to be carrying more weight if you're carrying all those warm sleeping bags and things like that. So that's a consideration. You're gonna have to haul more weight, more gear. So is one better than the other? Not necessarily. I don't think so. I have to admit, I am more of the just bring the warm gear type person. That's kind of how I was taught growing up. And I've noticed when I try to do the kind of minimalist thing with the fire, I have a tendency to not stay all that warm, and I wake up over and over and over a lot, and it just kind of seems like more work and a little bit less rest. So I do tend to kind of go with just bringing a warmer sleeping bag, but I do like to vary it up and try different techniques, which I've been kind of playing around with, and I'll continue to. Yeah, I found a little something here. I cracked this log off, kind of a long, pretty rotten log, and right here, apparently I happened upon a squirrel's walnut stash. Actually, I guess there was a little opening in the top, you know, right about here or so, and I guess that's where that squirrel had been putting all those walnuts. You can see there's more up in the other section down there. But yeah, it looks like somebody had been chowing down on them and just dropped them in there. It's kind of interesting how they eat them, because, you know, we always obviously crack them open and get that walnut out. And that's a tough show on these walnuts, but looks like the squirrels just kind of chew through there and get at the good bits there. Just kind of gnaw them down. It's kind of interesting. Hey, there's one here. Oh, nope, they got that one too. I thought maybe there's probably still something in that one, because the other side hasn't been chewed through yet. But anyway, interesting little find. Uh-oh, I've had an injury. I don't know if this is even focusing. It's so hard to see on the little LCD screen. Picked up a little piece of wood to throw it on the fire. And there was a thorn there, and it got me, and yeah, it's bleeding pretty well. I squeezed a little bit of blood out initially to just kind of help flush any grunginess or whatever that might have been in there out, and now it's just continuing to come out a little bit. There is a lot of honey locust around here. That's why I think it is. that I've been tossing on the fire. And I believe it was, I think I saw in Horace Keppert's book, I think he had honey locust on the list of better firewoods. And it does burn pretty well, and it leaves some good coals, or some decent coals anyway. But some of the pieces have pretty big nasty thorns, so you do have to watch out for that. Yeah, there are quite a few thorns around here on stuff. If it's not on the honey locust trees, it's on the vines that are growing around stuff. You always have to be, paying attention and looking out for things, or you can not look out for things and wind up with that. Happens. Oh well. And this, of course, is why you always need to have some sort of a first aid kit with you. This is a little one that I just put together last summer on my own. It's got a nice little nylon zippered pouch, and I just kind of customized it with stuff. I'll have to, at some point in the future, do a little video about some of the stuff I carry and why. Yeah, this is pretty much a non-issue for for an injury, but I figured it probably wouldn't hurt to put a Band-Aid on it anyway. What a difference just a few hours makes. That like 3/4 of an inch of snow that was covering everything this morning. Yeah, it's about maybe 1:30 now, and it is pretty much completely gone. Yeah, there's a few little spots in the shadows or so, but outside of that, it is all gone. It's just a night and day difference, snow-wise. Pretty much just a cooler spring day is all we have going on now. All right, got about everything packed up. Just have a few things to get together and strap on the pack, and just need to put the fire out and be ready to walk out of here. Thanks for coming along with me on a interesting little cold snap overnight camp out in April. All the snow's gone, and it's kind of a normal spring day with just a little on the chilly side. Thanks for coming with me and hanging out. And this is Gareth from Mountain Coffee Outdoors. I'll see you next time. Hey, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit like and subscribe to my channel if you're new here, which you probably are at this stage in the game. Just kind of keep your eyes out for what I have coming up. You could always hit that little bell to get notifications. I probably won't be filling up your notification thing with all sorts of videos, so I won't clog it up too much anyway. But thanks for coming along with me.